Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of the OMC webinar series, which is organized by the European project SPACE4Cities. My name is Mandrillon. I am Space Project Manager at Aerospace Valley, which is one of the largest clusters in Europe related to the space industry. And with my colleague Jennifer and the other partners of the project, will be your host today. So you already probably wonder what OMC means. We will discuss that later, of course. But just for now, please know that it stands for consultation. So I will share my screen. Is everything working on our side? Yeah. Okay. So a few housekeeping rules regarding this webinar. A Slido window should have popped up on your screen, on the right part of your screen. And it will be the main tool for interactions during this webinar. You don't need to type in the chat. Everything will go through Slido. And of course, the webinar's language is English, and it is recorded so that we will send it to participants. You should already be able to answer the first question, which is a question about the type of your organization, just as a test. And if you prefer, you can also scan the following QR code to access Slido on your phone. We also recommend you to keep Slido open because if you close it on WebEx, it's you will have to click on the three dots at the bottom right corner of your screen. And otherwise you can still connect via the QR code, which will be displayed several times in the webinar. We encourage you to ask as many questions as possible, and we also guarantee your questions are anonymous. So you should also bear in mind that we will not be able to answer all your questions during this webinar. But the very aim of this webinar is to collect those questions and to answer them lately in the Q&A that we will present you during the webinar. The Q&A is on our website. Then the agenda that you've probably already seen is the following. There will be a first introduction that I will take charge of. Then we will present the first challenge of SPACE4Cities, which is urban planning. We will continue with a potential version of the rules that will apply to the call for tenders of SPACE4Cities. And eventually we will explain you a little bit more the PCP process before wrapping up the webinar. So let's begin with the introduction of the project and the OMC. So SPACE4Cities is a PCP action funded by the European Commission through EU SPA. It's a project that aims to develop a replicable solution that use space data to meet the needs of the cities. And in particular, we focus on needs related to a dynamic management of public spaces. For that, we will launch one and only call for tenders, which basically amounts for 2.87 million euros. And it will be launched in 2025. But Renske will, our project coordinator, will go through that later. The consortium of the project is composed of 5 public buyers that you will discover during this webinar. I mean, most of them. There are 5 cities, Athens, Helsinki, Ghent, Amsterdam, and Guimarães. There is a cities network, which is Open and Agile Smart Cities, OASC, and Aerospace Valley is the expert partner of the space industry. The timeline of the project is also showed on the slide. It began last February, and it would last 3.5 years, and it is divided in 5 main steps that you can see. The OMC that we are presenting to you today. Then there will be the solution design after the first selection, then prototyping and field testing. And at the end of the field testing, hopefully some procurement will be done by cities. And that's what we call the last step, exploitation and scaling. Let's continue with what is an OMC. So we have 3 main goals during this OMC. The first one is to know what solutions exist with using space data or not, and which ones are commercialized. So it means we have to create a state of the art, and to also know what future solutions, future markets are forecasted. The second goal is to get inspiration and feedback from you, and that's what we are doing today, before we draft our requirements and selection criteria. The last one is to allow you, of course, to interact in a more lively way with public buyers that are present today. So since the beginning of the project, we have drafted several OMC, we have proposed several OMC activities. So the first one is to engage in the OMC is this series of webinar. There will be also national webinars in local languages. There is a survey, which is very important for us to collect your feedback and ideas. A survey for procurers and for suppliers that are most likely to interest you. There is also an OMC community on LinkedIn to ask questions, to get insights from the challenges. And we also provide you with an email, a question email that you can, where you can answer, you can ask questions. And at the very end, there is also a matchmaking directory if you're looking for partners to answer the call, or if you are interested in suggesting your services. And all those activities will feed both the Q&A that I've talked about, that is published on our website, and also the call for tenders that is coming in January or Q1 2025. Now, since the beginning of the project in February, the 5 public buyers of SPACE4Cities have worked on defining their needs and identifying them. And they came up with 3 main challenges, and they will structure also the webinar series. And today we are dealing with the urban planning challenge, sorry. And just to introduce you to this topic, I want to set the context with one figure. 75% of the EU population lives in 2% of the EU territory. So, of course, you understand that there are many challenges related to urban spaces and urban areas. And from this EU territory, also on around 5% is built up. And that's what we are going to see now with our first panelist from Ghent. And I just want to recall the fact that we could have also tackled challenges related to climate adaptation and greening in cities, but this was a choice of ours. We decided to put that in the next webinar. So if you're interested also in knowing how to green cities, to make them sustainable, more adapted to climate change, this will happen on the 26th of September in 1 month. You should also be able to answer a new question on urban planning. So let's hear what Timo and Dieter from the beautiful and medieval city of Ghent and the challenge they face with regards to build-up areas. Timo, Dieter, it's up to you.
Hello, everyone. Will you handle the slides for me, Alan, or can I do it myself? All right, perfect. So, hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Timo. I myself am I'm not an urban planner, but I've been working in the city of Ghent, so in local government for over 12 years, as a public buyer and as a data manager. So very much experienced with the need for cities to get access to the right data and to have some guarantees on what we will be able to build on top of it in terms of policies. This is quite a big challenge. We just call this urban planning, but it falls apart in many different things, as you can see on the next slide, I hope. So we're talking now about the built environment, but that's a very, let's say, broad category of challenges we're facing. As you can see, we've broken this down into everything that's related to simulations and digital twins. How can we get improved data to do these kind of simulations? How can we find out the right details? Sometimes policies are very, let's say, very tailored to a very specific group of inhabitants. So will we be able to get the right data in order to develop these policies? Is always a big question. And simulating and engaging with citizens, participatory urban planning remains something that is not easy to organize. Second, let's say, a group of challenges within this portfolio of the built environment is everything that's related to infrastructure and maintenance. Local authorities never have the budgets, unless maybe some very large authorities never have the budget to maintain every square inch of the city in a pristine way. So if we're talking about public infrastructure, we really need to organize and prioritize which parts will be tackled first. Of course, this also relates to energy infrastructures, public buildings, specifically management of bridges and canal walls, especially in a city like Ghent, can be a problem. As Alain mentioned, we have quite a medieval city center, which you can already see by the location I'm in. This is just my house. And again, prioritizing these renovations is key. What my colleague will be going into in more detail a little bit here is the problem of urbanization and well-being. Many cities are growing. Ghent is one of them. And this brings with it a lot of challenges in terms of urbanization, urban growth, and sprawl. How do we distribute the population, but also distribute the right services? How do we maintain the right air quality? How do we do smart waste management? All of these things are challenges we are faced with. And for us, even within this project, it's always an overarching question of, will we be able to get the data? So the question we are asking ourselves, and you here, is will we be able to tackle these with your services and with satellite data? But I would like to give the floor to Dieter to go a little bit more into this question of urbanization and urban sprawl. If you can. Dieter, can you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Good morning. Like Timo said, I'm Dieter. I'm an urban planner of the city of Ghent. And I will explain some challenges we face in the urban planning service. The first of all, we have the typical thing for Flanders, but also for some other highly populated and still growing regions in Europe, I think. That's the urban sprawl. In 2002, the land take in Flanders is around 1/3 of the surface. So the build-up region is about 1/3 of the surface, and 15% is paved. And we are still growing. So when we do nothing, this trend will still go on. You can go to the next slide, because the next slide, you will see some effects this has. It has a lot of negative effects. Everybody knows the biodiversity. There's less space for plants and animals. The heat, the urban heat island effect will grow. Our landscape is enormous, is fragmented, and there's a growing risk of flooding and the drought. How do we stop this land take? The other slide gives another effect of this growing. Yeah, we can't just stop building. The population, industry, students are still growing. We will need extra spaces for housing, students, and industry. The market responds on this question by building monofunctional building projects, but public facilities like the people or the workers need, like schools, daycares, parks can't keep up this speed. And the ideal there is the 50-minute city where everything is within 50 minutes walking. But how do we achieve this? Policy plans and how do we achieve this? And then the next slide focuses on some policy plans. There are nowadays on different levels, European, Flanders, or City of Ghent. They want to tackle the land take. But the question is, how do we grow wisely? We still have to grow, but not with the same land take. Therefore, we can use extra data to, first of all, monitoring what's the problem now and to detect the problems. Then to design urban developments are in a better way. And another level is the simulation. We can simulate policy plans, or we can simulate the effect of an urban development and see what's the effect. And that's our 3 levels we need. We can use extra data to improve those steps. Yes, that was my contribution. I give the word back to Timo.
Thank you very much, Dieter. So a big part of this, if we don't want to have a net land take, we need to be able to deseal parts of the soil. And of course, we are hoping that satellite data will help us detect if desealing is happening and if it's happening in the right way. But obviously, this is just one of the data points we are confronted with and that we are lacking. Especially desealing of soil in private developments. But I just wanted to broaden this again a little bit, because this is a problem for Ghent, but it's for all of the buyers, and I think for all cities in Europe. And this relates back to the first part. So now we saw an example of urbanization, but in fact, it always goes back to having improved data and being able to simulate policies. So that's it. That's where I want to wrap up for Ghent, and we're very interested in hearing from you.
All right, thank you very much, both. Now we will hear Weiyi Ding from the lively city of Amsterdam, and she will show us how urban planning is also related to air quality issues and the energy transition.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my name is Weiyi Ding. I work as a data scientist at the City of Amsterdam. As Ellen already mentioned, I'll elaborate on the 2 sub-challenges, air quality and energy transition, how satellite data could contribute to a better scenario. Next one, please. So the problem that we're facing, let's start with air quality. The problem we're facing is, well, poor air quality in urban regions in Europe, due to mainly fossil fuels, mainly transportation and manufacturing industry, of course, leading to greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants. This all is harming environmental and public health, causing global warming. To improve the situation, there's a mandate Well, national, we have the Schone Lucht Accord, so this Clean Air Policy Agreement. It aims to reduce overall air pollution by 50% in 2030, so compared to 14 years before, so 2016. And there's a European Clean Air Program setting similar objectives for 2030. Next one. So as urban planning shapes the layout of the city, so this is how it could address the air quality problem. The first one is by zoning and land use. Zoning industrial areas away from residential zones and incorporating more green spaces. Public exposures to pollutants can be reduced. And transportation planning, so by adjusting the development of public transit, bike lanes, and pedestrian paths, our reliance on cars can be reduced and decreasing vehicular emissions. And then we have the green infrastructure. So by incorporating more trees, plants, parks, green rooftops into the city planning, enhances urban aesthetics as well. And of course, the pollutant absorption, and provide also cooling effects that reduce urban heat islands as a side positive effect. And the last one might be the most important one. In urban planning, we set the rules in building codes and regulations. So setting standards for building designs that can reduce emissions from heating and cooling systems. Next slide, please. Well, the current satellite open data is very difficult to process and integrate into policies. We're facing with complicated or inadequate data for comprehensive assessment and monitoring of the overall air quality of the city. It shows only a limited range of pollutants that exceed the thresholds. So it lacks detailed quantitative information across different altitude layers. So not just like a whole column, but yeah, from the ground level upwards to the living layer, the living range, I would say, and combined with other relevant weather parameters that also affect how these pollutants are flowing or moving. As many European cities only have some sensors on ground level measuring a few locations. So in Amsterdam, I think we have like 11 or 12. Correct me if I'm wrong later. They put in certain locations. I call it a bias because they've been put there for a reason. So it's not really representing the whole area, the whole air quality of the whole urban area. And that's all impeding, it's impeding the development of effective measures and interventions in urban planning. So at the right side, you can see an image that I took from Sentinel-5P. This is the best resolution we can get. Well, Amsterdam is doing slightly better than Rotterdam, you see. So yeah, ideally we will have like more detailed picture of the Amsterdam or other urban areas. And not just this one's nitrogen dioxide, but of course combined with other pollutants. And next slide, please. So to finish air quality, our main objective is to enhance air quality by managing emission sources, optimizing urban land use and transportation infrastructure, integrating green infrastructure, and improving building codes and regulations. So what we need as a city in our solution is a good overview of the constituents contributing to air pollution. So among others, the PM 2.5, nitrogen, sulfuric, and ozone, carbon dioxide, etc., and also metals, really. So the detection of individual severe hotspots to identify the sources and patterns and flows, so where the problem is located, pinpointing them. Ideally also monitoring for long-term trends, patterns combined with weather parameters, generate high resolution spatial temporal data on the components. So not just the spatial like in 3D or high resolution, but also more frequent data, to have like a more real, almost real-time data on the pollutants. And ideally also supporting the policymakers. So in the end, our solutions, they've been used, it's for policymakers. So it must be fitting their regulation assessments to create a location customized restriction maybe, and air quality maps and alerts when levels are exceeding thresholds. And the last one is modeling future scenarios of the urban planning developments, measures, and other events. So on the right side, you can see an image I took from a paper published 5 years ago. This was about an urban area in China somewhere. And it was one very small area. So what I really liked about this, well, the paper is that they were one of the first ones to compare all the pollutants and the temperature, pressure, humidity as well to seek for correlations. So ideally to have this kind of a graph for urban areas and with high resolution. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the second one, or last one, last sub-challenge I'm going to elaborate is the energy transition. I don't think I have to explain the energy transition itself, but the problem we're facing in Amsterdam now, it's, yeah, we're still generating 60% of our electricity by fossils, unfortunately. We're not optimizing the solar and the wind energy, among others, due to limited accuracy of the wind and solar power forecasts, leading to some inefficiencies in energy generation, distribution, infrastructure utilization, and storage management. Well, the mandates, there's a European Climate Agreement, and we have a National Energy Policy Agreement. And as for Amsterdam, to scale down, we aim to use 100% of our rooftop services and also other services for solar PV by 2040, which is an estimated maximum potential of 1,100 megawatts. And to achieve this one, even the city even renewed its energy production contracts with companies and the grid operator. As in before, maybe as a city, we didn't have that much to say about the electricity infrastructure, but slowly it's changing. Next one, please. And that's where urban planning plays a very important role. It's the integration of the renewable energy installations. So same thing, areas for renewable energy installations, also solar panels, wind turbines in appropriate zones, meaning not put in the shades or somewhere like a wind turbine in somebody's backyard, for example. And this is always very essential to ensure smooth integration of the renewables into urban grid. The second one is sustainable mobility. Oh, go back. In second one of the urban planning topic will be sustainable mobility. So planning for the electric vehicles infrastructure, the charging stations, the location of the charging stations, I mean. And for designing energy efficient buildings, so mandate energy efficient designs, the use of sustainable materials, for example, passive solar design, optimal installation, and retrofitting the existing buildings to meet a higher energy standards. And the last one is to put district energy systems, developing the sustainable district heating and cooling systems. So basically reusing the heating for the energy for other systems and the other way around to reduce the overall energy consumption. And next one, please. Yeah, the last one. So the main objective in energy transition to become a carbon neutral or a 0% fossil city. So we have the maximal use of solar and wind potentials aligned with energy demands of households, industry, urban public spaces, such as street lighting, electric public transportation, and some other energy intensive events or facilities. So what we need, this one, ideally to have energy digital twin. So on the right side is I put a very basic picture of a digital twin of a house, not my house, unfortunately. So to model how you could use your rooftop, go back. To affect all the seasonal change of the solar and how much electricity you could generate. So the potential energy by real time and forecasted weather data. And some optimal locations for solar PV or wind turbines, including ideal placement details, so how to face your solar panels, so not put in the shades, preferably in the west side, facing the west, I mean. And yeah, to calculate the expected energy yield you could gain, combined with the unit usage and the storage system attached to it. And there's also incorporation to the current grid infrastructure in order to balance the grid and ensure safety. Well, yes, with other stuff, but there must be a financial incentives as well. So ideally, so financial modeling upon energy forecasts and actions on the grid. For example, maybe you could get money if there's a lot of sun, or to charge your car or batteries. And there's also supporting policymakers again, because in the end it's for them. And by some assessments, maybe energy maps, enabling proactive management of the energy resource to ensure this public safety. And the last one is then again model future scenarios of the developments. And that was it about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Weiyi. And now we'll finish the presentation of the with can you hear me? Yeah. With the last panelist from the city of Guimarães, which is
I'm done with talking. If you want, I can continue, but
which is the 2025 EU Green Capital finalist. Carlos will speak about data issues related to data and digital twins. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, Alan. Maybe okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Of course, that first of all, I'm a biologist. I'm the executive director of the Landscape Laboratory. It's a research center in the city of Guimarães, and I'm also part of the climate transition team of the city. So I will talk a little bit briefly about the importance for us of digital twins, but also the importance of improving data to achieve our main of our challenges here that I know that are similar to the other cities. But firstly, maybe I can start with our first slide. It's just our climate journey. Guimarães is a historic city, known because it was European Capital of Culture in 2012, the European City of Sports in 2013. And of course, that in this timeline, I can highlight some dates, important dates for this climate journey that started in 2013 and 2014 with the mayor's decision to ask environmental diagnosis to the University of Minho to reinforce and to start this green transition. And of course, that in this climate journey, we have some important goals, medium-term and long-term goals, namely, of course, that being climate neutral by 2030, trying to win, of course, the European Green Capital in this year for 2026, but long-term to be a one-planet city. And when we did this environmental diagnosis, the next slide, you can see that the conclusions, what were the conclusions of the environmental diagnosis? Ala, can you put the next slide, please? So you can see here the highlights from the environmental diagnosis and our needs, the lack of integrated management, data and report, the scientific evidence. So of course that after this, we reinforce our collection of data, trying to integrate or increase the integrated management of the city to try to start this action plan for sustainable development. And this is why we consider that this kind of digital twins are important not only to report, and after I can talk a little bit about reporting, so their importance in urban planning and to increase the decision making. And in the next slide, just to highlight, the next slide, you can highlight, of course, the importance of this kind of digital twins to visualize impacts, to test solutions, to implement some strategies. Of course, that we have, and most of the cities have sensors, sensor networks that can integrate in digital twin models, and of course that they have, or most of them have, open data platforms. But we need to integrate more, for example, the satellite potential and images to try to create a more integrated tool to help the cities in the designing of the city of the future, in designing the urban planning. And of course that in the next slide, I just highlighted some of the last one. Sorry, Alan, the last one. You can see some of the highlighting some of the importance of this kind of digital twins, not only in the city planning, but also providing real-time information for the citizens, because we know this kind of transparency is very important to engage the citizens in the green transition, and of course to improve the sustainable urban development. But of course that it is important in the urban planning, but also it is important in the reporting. And in the next slide, you can see some of the networks and some of the commitments of our city, but it's similar to other European cities. And we know that currently there are several networks, several European commitments, and we need to report, we need to monitorize the climate journey of the cities. And these kind of solutions are, of course, very important to help cities in this kind of monitorization. For example, and you can see, and I can show you in the next slides, some kind of monitorization that we have in the city, the monitorization for air quality, for different pollutants that we have. We collect data, we provide data also for the national agencies. We have also monitorization for water quality that you can see in the next slide, and that you can see the evaluation of the water quality of the rivers. The next slide, just to show you this kind of data that is very important to the urban planning, to also to understand the evolution of the human pressure and the urban pressure also in the different water resources. Of course, that we have monitorization for green areas. The next slide showed you some of the kind of monitorization that we have to ensure or to evaluate the livability of our spaces, the use of our green areas and green corridors. We have also monitorization for biodiversity. In the kind of biodiversity, of course, that we know that it's very important to monitorize, to better decide the urban planning of the city and the impact in the urban planning. But we have now new challenges, not only for our city, but also for some of the cities that we saw also this morning. But in the new slides, maybe I can sum up some of these slides. We need more integration. We need more information, more automation of this kind of solutions, early coverage, and we need to increase this kind of monitoring to improve this evidence-based decision making that can help the policymakers in the urban planning. And just to finalize, I can show you that we have also different opportunities in the European context, because Guimarães is one of the signatory cities of the Green City Accord, but we have 113 signatory cities, and cities needs to report every 2 years in the different fields of sustainability. So we need more monitorization. We need more report to report to the Green City Accord. We have also the European missions. For example, in the next slide, the 112 cities selected for the European missions to climate neutrality by 2030. They are pilot cities to achieve climate neutrality by 2030. So we have this kind of goal, the important goal, and to achieve this goal, we need information, we need tools, we need monitorization. And just the last one, also the pilot programs that we have now for the European cities mission, under the European cities mission, more than 100 cities were selected to test solutions in the urban center, to test solutions in the city, to provide some of test beds to test some tools. And this is why this kind of digital wins, this kind of solutions, and using satellite images can be very important for the progress of the cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I think your presentation showed there are many inspiring ways to answer the city's needs, and those needs are shared actually by many cities across Europe, even though they are quite different. So thank you to the 3 cities. I think we covered many aspects of the urban planning challenge. Although I must recall, those sub-challenges that were presented to you are not mandatory to answer in the call for tenders. They are, for now, examples, and they gave you an idea of the topics you can address with your solution. So now that we all have an overall idea of what our whole cities face in terms of urban planning, let's see what by rules I mean requirements and selection criteria our project SPACE4Cities will apply to select you might develop. And those rules, I will underline this, are applicable to all challenges, not the urban planning challenge, but for now they are to be considered for all challenges. So Boen, product owner from Amsterdam, also will present requirements and challenges that we have worked on since February. Boen, you can take the floor.
Thank you, Alan. I think we can go to the next slide. Yes, thank you so much. Previous one. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is Boen Groothoff, and I'm the product owner of our smart mobility team in Amsterdam, meaning we use data to improve our mobility system and make it more sustainable and smarter. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about the requirements we have for this project. And as Alan said, these are general requirements, meaning for every solution that you bring to the floor, these requirements need to be met, and regardless of the challenge. Then I say need to be. In the eventual document, there will, in the call for tenders, there will be both must-haves as well as nice-to-haves. So bear in mind, they're not in here, but that will be in the eventual tender call for tenders. Then requirements themselves, we have divided them into 3. And one more thing, the requirements are still in a concept phase, so they're not final yet. And we're actually telling you this now because we want your feedback on these requirements. So you can use the Slido or the email address that will be at the end of this presentation and ask us any questions about the requirements. Are they understandable? Are they viable to actually deliver on a good solution? And we will take that into account and publish these Q&As on the website after we answer them. So without further ado, now I will go into the requirements themselves, and we divided them in 3 categories. We have the functional part, which is more about what your solution should actually do. Then we have the non-functional part, which is more about what it should achieve for the society. And then there's the feasibility part, show us that you can actually deliver on a good solution. So can we go to the next slide? The functional requirements, again, we divided those up in 3 as well. So what your solution should do, but also how you will make it work and why the solution is actually a good solution. Next slide. So what should your solution do? I think the next one. Next one. And the next one. Yes, that's it. Oh. So what should your solution do? I think some text has gone missing, but I'll talk you through it. First of all, this project is commissioned by the European Space Project Agency, and they want you to use Copernicus or Galileo data. These are 2 of the big programs that they put out. Copernicus provides data on Earth's observation, whereas Galileo provides geopositioning services, and your solution should use these in a significant way. You can also use other data as well, besides this data, but this data is mandatory. Then there's the processing of the data. We as cities are perfectly capable of gathering the raw data from these programs ourselves. So your solution should improve on this data. Use AI, use a combination of different data sources to, to improve this data and come up with a better solution for cities. Then the third one is innovative technology. This project is not meant to buy off-the-shelf existing technology. Your solution should be developed during this process and should be new and beyond the state of the art. Next slide, please. Then on how you will make your solution work. Yeah, perfect. Of course, your solution should eventually be used by people working in a municipality. So we want you to show us how you make sure that they can actually use it. What is the user experience like? How do you manage everything that works with that? Then, of course, your solution should be piloted to be improved upon over time. So we want to see a plan how pilots will prove that your solution is working and give you every insight you need to improve upon your solution over time. The last one is support and maintenance. Of course, when a city will eventually procure your solution, they want to know what service levels goes with it. What is their responsibility? What are your responsibilities? And what will happen if something goes wrong? Next slide, please. And I want to see why the solution is a good solution for the city. So first of all, of course, relevance. We have now presented one of the challenges. 2 more will be presented later. And of course, your solution should be within these challenges. So not the use cases that have been presented also today, but the main challenges, it should be relevant for them. And then the other thing is, of course, quality. So show us the quality of your solution. Show what kind of specifications your solution will bring. What kind of resolution are we looking at? Whatever you can do to give us tangible information about the quality of your service. So that's it for the functional requirements. Then, of course, we have the non-functional requirements, and we'll go through this a bit quicker. The non-functional requirements, as said, they are about what it will actually do for society as a whole. So please the next slide. So describe your positive impacts, whether it's economical, societal, or environmental. Then, of course, we also want to be ready for a different future. So describe your future vision. What potential does your solution unlock for society on the long term? And then there is the difference from today. So of course, there's a status quo, what is happening today. Describe what will change over time when your solution is implemented and why that is good. Then we go to the last one, which is the feasibility. Again, some of the text is missing, but here we want you to show us that you can actually deliver on your solution. And for that, we need a proper project management plan. Can we see if the rest of the text comes in if we go to the next one? Yeah, next one. Yeah, there we are. Oh, yeah, here. So for your project management plan, of course, we need to see your schedule. We need to see your methodology. We want to see some risk management and some quality assurance. And then we also want to know who is actually doing this. So what does your team look like? What competencies and capabilities do they have? Have they delivered on similar projects beforehand? Can you give references for that? And are you doing it with a team within your company, or do you have a consortium where you actually combine different capabilities? And the last one is commercial feasibility. So how can we actually see a solution that actually will make it to market and will be scalable? So first of all, it needs to be replicable. We are with 5 partner cities, but there will also be at least 50 follower cities, which all have different situations, and we want solutions that are capable to be replicating among these cities. This will also provide you with a bigger markets to sell your product to, so that's actually also good for yourself. And then the last one is scalability. So I already said we want to be able to scale among different cities. However, also the amount of data can drastically increase over time. So your solution needs to be technically scalable as well to handle this increase of demand or increase of data that goes in there. So yeah, thanks. That was it on the requirement side. We can see if there are any questions. Please put them in the Slido or send your questions to questions@space4cities.eu. And of course, we will publish them eventually on the website space4cities.eu/Q&A. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much, Boen. That was very insightful. We have several questions for you regarding these requirements, and by the time you answer, we will also have a short answer session of the Q&A because many questions are popping in. So the first question we want to ask you is of the following requirements that were presented by Boen, which ones would be the most challenging to you? And you have to select in the Slido 3 answers, the 3 main challenges, and to rank them. It's not the good one. Here you can see the question. So regarding the Q&A, there was a question regarding the role of Aerospace Valley, so I will answer this one. We do not, unfortunately, provide space data during the project. So you would be able to find yourself the data. So the data is quite accessible as the European Commission has a free and open policy regarding space data. You can find it on the Copernicus data space ecosystem. You can see CDSC on the internet, and otherwise you can also buy commercial space data to use during the project. It's the use of Copernicus or Galileo is required, but it's not the only data source you may have to design your solution. Was a question?
Alain, Renske here. I noticed many of the questions are related to the presentation that I will have soon, which is a lot about the process and who's allowed to apply and these kind of things. So I think we could skip over those for now, right?
Okay. Yeah, if you want.
They will be covered anyway in the next presentation.
So do you want to start now?
No, I would prefer to go to the other questions first and wait, because many will be answered during the presentation.
Okay, so there was another question, I think, which is not related to the PCP process, which relates to the curbside management issue for cities. And of course, indeed, it is very much in the urban planning challenge. We are a satellite provider. Can we enter as a supplier? Of course, but you would need someone to exploit and analyze the data. If you provide SAR data, you also have to be able to analyze the data.
And on top of that, you need to be able to also use Copernicus or Galileo.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you do so, you have to find either a partner that uses Copernicus data or to use Copernicus. Can you do multiple actions to various challenges? Yes, you can. It is possible. Would you consider? So this last question is about the process. We will go to the next questions now regarding your use of Galileo and Copernicus. So the first question is, have you ever utilized, are you using a Galileo service? Then you will see the several Galileo services displayed, and you can check the ones you have used or not. There is also a question while you are answering regarding Destination Earth, a project led by the European Commission, ESA, ECMWF. We do not have contact with them right now, but for instance, if a solution is linked to climate adaptation and the data and the results are interesting for this destiny, we could have a chat, of course. This would be very interesting. Weiyi, I think there is a question for you regarding air quality. Which pollutants are you mainly interested in?
Well, I think mainly, well, first to start with the greenhouse gases. So it's the carbon dioxide, monoxide, nitrogen, monoxide, dioxide, sulfuric ones, methane. So basically everything what falls in the greenhouse gas nowadays. The definition I don't know by heart right now, but what would be nice to have is the metals. So the ones that get well in the air, but could be dissolved into water. So air, a little bit of the surface water, metal ones. Yeah, I think mainly these. Yeah, and after the PM 2.5 and 10.
Thank you very much. There is also questions regarding universities. Can they apply? Are they eligible? Renske will talk about it later, but of course, when we talk about providers, we include companies, so SMEs, startups, large entities, large companies, but also research and technology institutes and universities, as well as non-profits and non-governmental organizations. We can, I think, go to the next question, which is quite the same, but applied to Copernicus. And which services are you using? Are you, for instance, using the Copernicus services data from Copernicus Climate Change Service, the Copernicus Emergency Management Service, or the Copernicus Land Monitoring Service, or again, the Copernicus Marine Service? There is also You can also check if you are using raw data from the Copernicus program, so data from the contributing missions or directly from the Sentinels. You should see it appear on the right now. So let's continue the Q&A. Boen or Weiyi, maybe. Do you know the total electricity consumption of Amsterdam? Or an estimate?
One more time, what did you say? The total?
Electricity consumption.
Of Amsterdam?
Yeah.
I don't know the one by heart, no. I can look it up.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
We could answer that later.
Yeah, so it's a very hard question. Well, we have, of course, our households, the vehicles, transportation, industry, the harbor. Depending if you count Schiphol's or airports as well. Yeah, I'll come back to that later.
Yeah, this is a data that can be asked in your proposal. How many companies are allowed in a consortia?
Alain, I can get back to that while I talk about the PCP, okay? As well as the TRL level question and those kind of questions.
Okay, so I think we've covered everything, at least from what I can see. So let's go for the last.
Sorry, maybe Ellen, there was one question about the airspace, and I think that will be addressed in a different challenge around mobility.
Okay, thank you very much. If you do not see any other questions we want to answer now, we will go to the last part of our webinar, which deals with the PCP process and Renske, the SPACE4Cities coordinator, is here with us today to present the process, the eligibility, and other administrative questions. Renske, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Alain. Hi, Renske Martijnse-Hartikka here from Forum Virium Helsinki, the innovation organization of the city of Helsinki, and Forum Virium is leading this project. I'm the SPACE4Cities coordinator. I'll talk to you the coming 10 minutes about the PCP. It's not perhaps so common, not such a well-known type of innovation tool, let's say, or funding instrument. We're bound by quite strict rules and strict timeline given to us by the funder, by the European Commission. If you go to the next slide, Alain, I'm going to spend a bit of time on that and I'll kind of walk you through this slide. So in a pre-commercial procurement, first of all, I hope it's kind of clear by now that suppliers are competing through different phases of development. So a PCP is divided into 4 phases. We are right now still in phase 0, where this webinar is part of the open market consultation. And then in January, we publish our call for tenders. As mentioned, it's a bit over 2.8 million euros in total. We'll keep it open for a few months, probably till March, and then we do evaluations of this, of the tenders that we receive in March and April. The evaluators will be members of the buyers group, so the 5 cities and regions, and a panel of external expert evaluators as well. We will then select 18 to 20 suppliers or supplier consortia. And with that group, we sign a framework agreement in the beginning for the entire PCP process, as well as a specific contract for phase 1. We move to phase one. It's a relatively short phase, a couple of months, 4 months only, up to 40,000 euros per supplier. And the suppliers are expected to do the concept design. So the prototype development plan, a business model for future large-scale use of the solutions. So kind of a feasibility study. It's a desktop paperwork exercise in this phase one. What I want to remind you is that you don't have to start from scratch. It can be a solution that you have already been working on, or certain parts of it you've been working on, but it needs more R&D, it needs more work, it needs more testing. But do note, it cannot be commercially available yet. That's a crucial part of the PCP. We're looking for highly innovative solutions that are not available yet on the market, but that could become available in 2.5 years' time. So at the end of phase one, we have an evaluation round, again, with this group of evaluators, and then half of the suppliers are dropped. We sign contracts for phase two with 9 to 10 remaining consortia, remaining suppliers. And in this phase two, the suppliers develop a working prototype, which they have to demonstrate in kind of lab conditions or in a simulation. So when you talk about TRL levels, this would be TRL 4 or 5, right? During this phase, you should also develop a plan for the further development of the solution, a roadmap for the piloting, cost-benefit evaluation, a business plan. You should work in more detail about those things as well. It's a bit longer phase, around 7 months, 100,000 euros maximum per supplier. At the end of this phase, again, an evaluation takes place, same group of evaluators, and then we end up with the 5 final suppliers or consortia that move to phase 3. And phase 3 is the piloting phase, the field testing. So all the suppliers are expected to do a successful pilot in 1 buyers group city, one of the 5 cities, as well as 2 replicator cities, smaller scale pilot. Of course, by then we also expect that you have a realistic understanding of the potential use case, the future market, a commercialization plan, etc. So talking about TRL, I guess this would be like around TRL 7 then, doing a real life pilot in a relevant environment. This is the longest phase, around 10 months, and the largest budget, around 250 euros per supplier maximum. And then phase 4, in the very last months of the project, is about the exploitation of the results, about the scaling, working towards this concrete, like follow-up procurement and actual, like an innovation procurement of the solution. So Alain, if you go to the next slide, this has the same content more or less. I just wanted to show you, it shows maybe a bit more clearly that the budgets, they go up per phase, the number of suppliers goes down per phase. During the PCP process, we are not adding more companies, more suppliers, more consortia. Once you've made it to phase 1, it's like a closed process. No new companies anymore. Only companies will be sort of dropping out bit by bit until we end up with the 5 winning ones. So please, the next one, Alain. Who can apply for the PCP? We've covered it a bit already, answering the questions. Basically, everyone except authorities, to be short. We expect most suppliers to be companies, SMEs, startups, larger companies, and also research and technology organizations. Could be universities as well. Also, non-profits can apply, associations can apply. Just keep in mind, the solution needs to be commercialized at the end of the project. So even if you're a research institute, for example, you can apply, but you need to show convincingly that you will be able to commercialize. So perhaps you would want to team up with an SME or a commercial company, for example. The lead tenderer should come from the EU or one of the 20 Horizon Europe associated countries. I didn't list them here. You can see them on the Q&A page of the website, the eligibility section. There's the list of these associated countries. Consortium members, they can come also from outside the EU. Just keep in mind that at least half of the contract, 50% of the work done in this PCP should be performed in an EU member state or an associated country. It can be a single organization submitting a tender. It can be a consortium. Given the nature of the challenge and the expected work, I suppose that we expect that many tenderers will be consortia of multiple organizations, but it's not mandatory. What is also not mandatory is participation in this open market consultation. Of course, we are very happy that you are here with us today, and I think it's hopefully also useful to you, but you can also, companies can apply even if they haven't participated in the OMC. Could you move on, Alain, please? So other than the sort of obvious benefit of funding support for your R&D work, what else is great about this SPACE4Cities pre-commercial procurement? This is not the first PCP in Forum Virium. This is, in fact, our sixth PCP that we are involved in. And what we received also as feedback from previous ones is that one of the things that is normally also very attractive for companies is that by participating, you will get to know a lot of new companies throughout Europe who work in a similar or complementary field as you do, which can lead to new collaborations also outside, this whole project and PCP process. What hopefully is also attractive for you is that the IPR that you generate through this project is retained by you after the PCP. It does not transfer to the buyers group cities. I've mentioned already that we're asking you to create something highly innovative beyond the current state of the art. And we realize this brings risks. Maybe under normal circumstances, you wouldn't sort of dare to make this type of investment or to put this much effort. But through the PCP, those risks are actually shared with the procurers, so with the cities. Of course, the fund also is part of it also encompasses these three field tests. You get funding to carry out these three field tests, these three pilots in 3 different cities. And these can then be referenced for further commercialization. So it's a first point of reference for you. And I have to mention that SPACE4Cities already now generated really a lot of interest and attention in cities throughout Europe. We've had a webinar series for procurers, for cities and regions, and there were very large participant numbers, and there's I really do think that there will be really good commercialization opportunities beyond the project. And I mean, last but not least, you will probably know, working in this sector, that cities around Europe are not yet so familiar with using satellite data or space technology. And through this PCP, we also want to, well, let's say raise the knowledge levels of a wide range of European cities on this topic and about the possibilities of this type of data. So you, the suppliers, will have a chance in this project to work with a really wide range of authorities. And then you can also prepare yourself better to address the market or address your future market. Next slide, Alain. I wrapped up my presentation. Thanks very much. Do remember the Q&A page on the SPACE4Cities website. There are already many dozens and dozens of questions answered. So it might be your question is there already. If it isn't there, you can also email us, of course, through these questions at space4cities.eu. So yeah, let's see. I hope I answered some of the questions along the way. Maybe some new ones came, but that's it for me for now. And let's have a look at the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Renske.
Yeah.
I can ask the first question. Can the consortium change while moving through the phases?
We sign a contract for a specific phase with a specific consortium, with a lead buyer, and then there might be a lead tenderer, and then there might be other tenderers, there might be subcontractors. So in principle, that's a contract. Only if there are very, like I said, heavy weighing relevant reasons, it is up for discussion. But in principle, the consortium would stay the same throughout the phases. So it's also something to really think about when you write the tender, that who do you need, also not only in phase 1, but also in phase 3. And it can totally be that you have a consortium where you might have 4 different organizations of which 2 are most active in phase 1, and then some others will be more active in the other phases if you make it there. But no, there's not that much flexibility in changing the consortium. Of course, if a company would be bankrupted or something and you would have to do a replacement, there's discussion possible about that. Yes.
Yeah, and as a first, if you want to find a first contact file, you can find the matchmaking directory on the website.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you to get in contact and, as you said, Renske, talk about further phases, not only phase 1, but also the latest stages of the PCP. There is also questions regarding replicator cities. How will we exchange with this? The public buyers. How will we exchange with the cities during the development of the solution?
It's
on the stage.
Yeah, that it's something that we will come back, but sort of more specifically on this after the selection of the suppliers. But in general, we can say that, and that's one of the nice things about the PCP, that there's quite close contact between the companies and the cities, in terms of the suppliers asking for certain data needs and the cities. There can be there will be regular meetings, webinars, telcos planned between the suppliers and the cities, and whenever there's a need from the side of the suppliers, we'll try to answer it. So it's quite a let's say open process.
But either way, it will be a co-creation process during the PCP.
Yeah.
Will there be a webinar to explain SPACE4Cities wildcard? And if no, can you tell us a little bit more about this, the wildcard challenge?
Yeah, the wildcard is the challenge that is still meeting the requirements of more dynamic management of urban spaces in cities by use of satellite data, which is the overall SPACE4City challenge, but is not covered by some of the other challenges. That I would say is the short answer. Because SPACE4Cities project was particularly funded to find solutions to better and in a more dynamic way manage green spaces, public spaces, transport infrastructure, city maintenance, and overall contribute to the resilience and functionality of the cities. If you think you have a great solution to that, but it's not yet covered by the challenges, then you can propose it via the wildcard. We're not going, I don't think that we will define it any more specifically than that.
Yeah, no webinar on the wildcard challenge, of course.
No.
Thank you, Renske. A new questions on potential specific mechanisms regarding to startups. For instance, could we allow flexibility in meeting certain requirements for startups or providing additional resources to help them scale our solutions?
No, that's the short answer. There are no specific requirements or budgets that would be different for startups or other consortia. I would just recommend, if you're a startup, to try to maybe also team up with some other organization if you feel that there are certain requirements that might be difficult for you.
Yeah, and also the additional resources to help scale the solution will be the same for everyone. It means matchmaking with new 10 potential replicator cities that Renske talked about. They won't be a different, but they will be a kind of help to scale up the solution.
Yeah.
Is there a TRL level required, or is it all open? I think you covered this.
I covered it, yeah.
So the TRL increases during the PCP phases.
Yeah, that's covered as well. There's a question about the budget. So the 390,000 euros, they are indeed foreseen for the whole consortium, not for a single supplier. A consortium would have a lead tenderer, who would be the one who we transfer the money to, and then the lead tenderer needs to agree within the other partners of their consortium, you know, how to divide the budgets. You just present us with one budget for your consortium, and how do you divide it internally? It's up to you. And there's a question as well, if we expect specific solutions to be presented before the tender is published, or will the tender be generic enough to leave room for different types of solutions? Yes, that latter. The tender will be generic enough to leave room for different types of solutions, and we do not expect you to present anything before the tender is published. If you want to, I mean, we will have national webinars, OMC webinars as well. In the case of Helsinki, we are going to have a half-hour slot in which companies can do some 2-3 minute pitches. So then you could, if you want, during a pitch like that, this is a physical event in Helsinki I'm not talking about, you could pitch your solution and try to find maybe partners who want to team up with you in a consortium. But this is from the buyers group side, we don't expect any preview or anything. You will also not be able to send us an idea and say that, hey, we're considering this and this solution. What do you think? Will we make a good chance, or do you think this is suitable? No, we cannot do that. The tender will open in January, and then that's your cue to start writing your offer.
There is questions about intellectual property. How do you ensure cities will share ownership with the companies? It's something we have not agreed on.
No, there is some section on this, I think, in the tender document 1, and it comes back in the framework agreement to some extent, but I don't remember the phrasing, and I don't want to say anything now wrong. So maybe that's something that we have to look up and come back to, so that we are sure to have it phrased correctly.
Sure.
Yeah.
How many companies are allowed in a consortium?
There's no limit to that. Just make sure that it's reasonable. I mean, within these budgets, if you come up with a consortium with 15 companies, that might not be the most realistic, but it's up to you. There's no limit. Just try to present this with the most convincing consortium, let's say.
All right, I think we've covered all the PCP process questions. There is only one, I think, related to requirements, space-related requirements that I can answer right now, and we will wrap up the webinar. We need to use the Copernicus services products, or the Sentinel data is sufficient. For now, we have not decided if it's mandatory to use a specific Copernicus service, but I think as long as you use a Copernicus derived data, you meet the requirements. So you can use either Sentinel data or a Copernicus service produced data, I think.
It's a good point that this is also something we could come back to within our consortium and make sure that that's clearly described in the tender documents.
There was one of your general questions too.
Yeah. All right. So I think I will thank all the panelists.
Alain, I was just pointed to, there's a question that is maybe good to still cover. Can a proposal address multiple cities, or should it be only one? And I think that's a good point, because it's kind of to emphasize again that your solution, you don't necessarily write your solution for one particular city. Your solution should be applicable to many cities around Europe. We are also presenting these challenges that are very much sort of common challenges to the cities. And we will also not be able to link the proposals yet, only at the very end of the SPACE4Cities project to one particular, the solution will be linked to a city. In the piloting phase, of course, you will be assigned, your solution will be piloted in city X or city Y, but this is not something that can be decided already in phase 1. And also that's also why we don't expect you to write a proposal or a solution for one particular city. It's very important that it's scalable and usable elsewhere, like everywhere. So thanks, Alain. That's it from me.
Thank you to you, Renske. So let's now, we are in time, so we have 3 minutes to conclude the webinar. I wanted to highlight some of the next steps that you can have in SPACE4Cities. So the first reminder is concerns OMC activities. As I presented at the beginning of the webinar, there is here an open market consultation community that you can use to share insights or also to find partners for matchmaking. But you can also keep in touch with us and ask questions on this OMC community, which is a closed LinkedIn group. So you have to submit an invitation. Then there is the SPACE4Cities survey, and we highly recommend for you to answer the survey, because it allows you to take more time to understand the challenge and think about your solution and the potential innovative ways to answer the challenge. There are the next national and OMC webinars to come. I will share the save the dates with you in the next slide. And for cities, if there are some of them today, there is also a survey that is open until mid-September if you are interested by the challenges and the solutions that will be developed. Of course, you can also follow our newsletter and our LinkedIn to be informed in the right time. And all of this, as we said several times, feeds the Q&A page, which is consistently updated on our website. So the save the dates are the following. We have planned a second webinar of the Space Applications for Urban Challenges series, which is planned to be the 26th of September. And this one deals with climate adaptation and resilience for urban areas. Then our colleagues from Helsinki will host an in-person workshop on the 23rd of September dedicated to Finnish companies. Another one online on the 9th of October. The Greek colleagues from Athens and the region of Attica will organize a webinar in Greek on the 10th of October. The same day we are organizing it in French at Aerospace Valley, and our Dutch colleague will probably do so also in October in partnership with the Netherlands Space Office. The last OMC webinar of this kind will happen on the 25th of October. And you can also find us in different space-related events or research events. So, for instance, the Urbis workshop in Isa, in Frascati, in Italy, where Helsinki and Aerospace Valley will be present. Amsterdam will also attend the ESA Industry Space Days in mid-September, and we will also be at the International Astronautical Congress and at the Smart City Expo in November. So with that, we conclude this webinar. We thank you very much for all your feedback, your questions, and your attention. Thank you again to the panelists, and we hope to see you again of September. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.